due to the state of emergency. I assume that doesn't apply here. Skipping ahead.
Actually, Christy, Mr. Mandrati was kind enough to send me the exact
That's much better.
document. So let me get control of my Zoom and the rest of my faculties here. Expand that. Do we have a quorum yet? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6. Oh, and Mr. Noon is here. 7. Okay. All right. Let me move that. Come on, move over. Sorry, guys.
Your hand is huge.
I know, and so I always run my Zoom on my phone. Right now, I need to also read this thing off of my phone, so let's try this. All right, so noting a quorum and the time, it's good evening. It's 7:33. And this open meeting of the Acton Finance Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with the Legislative Acts of 2022, Chapter 20, Section 20, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This meeting is convening by Zoom as posted on the meeting agenda. Please see the meeting agenda on the town website for details on how to participate remotely. This meeting will feature public comment at the beginning of the meeting.
Recording in progress.
And please note that this meeting may be recorded and it may be published or rebroadcast. All participation within the meeting will be visible to others. And let's make sure if we make any votes tonight, they're all taken by roll call vote. And so the first item on the agenda is public participation. And are there any members of the public wishing to make a comment? I'm looking at my screen and I don't see anybody other than our Zoom, our Finance Committee members. So I think we're okay. And did we get all of our members promoted? Is there anybody that did not get promoted to?
Nope, there's nobody left as an attendee.
Okay, great. And I see Alissa is here. Hi, Alissa, welcome. So,
Hi there.
Alissa, it looks as though we don't have any public comments, so we can move right on to the Sewer Commission analysis warrant, which is yours, if you're ready to proceed. And let me know if you need me to share anything or if you would like to share.
I can attempt to share and we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah, so my computer for some reason asks me to open up my system preferences every time I try and share on Zoom. Okay. So it might be better if you are able to share those slides. And while you're pulling those up, Adam, I just wanted to let you know that I heard from Madeline, who unfortunately is on her way to the hospital because she's not well. But Tara is available to present those other warrant articles if the committee is amenable to that.
Yes, thank you. I got a note from Tara.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Now let me find your slides. Bear with me. Open. And let's see if I can share this. So when I say share screen, which screen do I share? I want to share this. Are you all able to see Sewer Commission analysis slide?
Not yet.
No.
Let me see. How about now?
Yes.
Yeah.
And everything looks okay to you?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm good to go.
I believe you're good to go. Just let me know when to move the slides ahead.
Will
Thank
do.
you.
All right. So for those of you who might not know me, my name is Alissa Nicol, and I am bringing a citizen petition to town meeting warrant Article 40, sewer commission analysis. And this petition seeks to see if the town will conduct an objective analysis, either by establishing a working group or committee, commissioning a study, or engaging a consultant to determine the pros and cons of creating a sewer commission independent of the select board or an advisory sewer committee, or take any action related thereto. Next slide. So the passing of this article would invite the select board to determine the best option for conducting the objective analysis. Some of the different options are to establish a working group or committee, conduct a study, and engage a consultant to perform the analysis. The article does not declare a preferred method of the analysis. If there are any costs associated with this exploratory effort, funding might come from a grant. The analysis could be conducted by a self-funded agency, for example, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, or it could use turned back funds from the end of the fiscal year. The petition does not declare a preferred solution. It seeks only to objectively analyze the available options to guide us to the best governance structure, whether the sewer commission would be independent, part of the town, advisory, statutory, whether the commissioners would be appointed or elected. Next slide. So the question, why is it important to take this issue up now? The select board, as you know, currently acts as sewer commissioners, but very few select board members come to office with the financial and technical knowledge required to administer these duties. Developing the expertise required takes a great deal of time while fulfilling many other obligations, and the priorities of each role can sometimes come into conflict, as the sewer commissioners are concerned with the needs of the select board is concerned with the needs of all residents, while the sewer commissioners are bound to serve the interests of the ratepayers. An independent body acting as sewer commissioners, or a sewer committee advising the select board, or even a structural change whereby the sewer commission business is taken up more regularly at a dedicated meeting and includes business such as financial accounting that includes future obligations, capital improvements, long-range planning, and reports from the plant operator, would improve the transparency of decision-making, increase opportunities for public engagement, and possibly result in better management of the plant and system. Furthermore, we've seen two recent attempts to expand the municipal sewer fail at town meeting. The proposed Spencer Tuttle Flint expansion failed to get the 2/3 majority vote that was required, and the proposed West Acton expansion not only failed to get a majority, but 75% of voters at town meeting voted nay. The conversation about restructuring the financial model, which was described as necessary by town officials following this most recent failed vote in December of 2019, still has not taken place. Next slide. Finally, there's an extensive rehabilitation currently underway. The $6.2 million approved at the 2021 annual town meeting, which unfortunately is not all available right now. And the cost of the project has gone up, as some of you or all of you are aware. The permitted 40B Powder Mill Place included an expansion of the collection system along Powder Mill Road to reach that development, as well as a contribution to the plant rehabilitation. And that project is not yet in progress. Major upgrades are being considered to increase the treatment capacity at the plant and the feasibility of adding additional rapid infiltration basins at the Adams Street site to allow the discharge, increase the discharge at that plant. That's being studied currently. Another study is underway right now, exploring wastewater solutions for Great Road corridor in East Acton. And the firm, Wright Pierce, has outlined options for either connecting to the wastewater treatment plant in South Acton or an additional treatment plant and discharge area located elsewhere. So these are all financial, important and fiscally impactful planning decisions that will continue for the next several years. And is that the fourth slide, Adam?
Sorry, yes, that's the fourth slide.
Great. So I don't have a summary slide yet for you, just for town meeting. So in summary, I will just say I appreciate your consideration of this article that seeks to improve the expertise of the governing body that has oversight of the existing municipal sewer system, as well as any future additions, such that long-range financial obligations and impacts are carefully considered. A specialized board could build expertise through the selection of members and build additional expertise over time through dedicated attention to this topic, or a dedicated agenda could increase detail-oriented oversight and long-term consideration of how wastewater is handled and the impacts of that handling to the groundwater supply in Acton. And
Okay.
welcome any questions or comments.
Yeah, wonderful. Let's go. Let me just go down the list of the attendees as I've got them. So Scott Sullivan, do you have any questions or comments for Alissa? And Alissa, thank you so much.
Excuse me, I don't have a question or comment right now. I'm just
No worries.
thinking about it right now. Yep.
Christine Russell.
Thanks, Alissa. So it sounds like the biggest problem is that this is a complex thing, project ongoing, and you're feeling that the details are being lost because the select board already has such a big role and so many other responsibilities that even once something is passed, there's no ability to stay on top of how those projects are going along and the follow through, and then further looking into the needs as far as sewers in the town. Is that to kind of get what you're looking to fix here?
That's a good summary. And your comment actually has brought up a couple of things that I failed to mention during that presentation. With the two previous proposed expansions, there were committees that were formed and then sunsetted. And there's a potential, if we had either an independent commission or a standing sewer committee, there would be more continuity rather than address these expansions in an ad hoc way. There would be some continuity and hopefully build expertise over time. But you're exactly right that carving off this responsibility from the select board's extraordinarily full plate and agenda, I think would benefit the town. And of course, there are financial implications of having, considering duplicate efforts. So I'm not in a position to suggest the right answer. I just want us to go and look for it.
Okay, thank you very much. So I guess that sounds fairly reasonable to me. My further questions you may not have the answer for, and maybe people who've been in town longer, maybe Mr. Noon or Roland or Mike, might know if Acton has ever had officially, a separate sewer commission from the select board, or if surrounding towns tend to have their own separate sewer commissioner, if it's typically handled the way we handle it here.
So I can address the second part of that question. I did a lot of searching for how other municipalities handle this oversight role. And there are a few other towns that have the select board acting as sewer commissioners. Maynard is one, Belmont is one. I think it's Hopedale is another one, but I was able to locate information on many more municipalities where the bodies were separate. Even Belmont, although it's the same people acting as sewer commissioners and select board members, they have independent meetings. So there are select board agendas, and then they meet at another day and time as sewer commissioners. There's one municipality, Leicester, that had an independent sewer commission, similar to the Acton Water District Commission. That's more typical of cities to have an independent entity. And Leicester is moving from that independent body of sewer commissioners to a town entity. So they're going back. So I think for towns, it's more common to have distinct entities because the finances are already separate. The sewer enterprise fund is distinct from the town's general funds.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Alissa. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Jason Cole.
Thank you very much, Alissa. I'm sorry I was able to meet your form signing session on Sunday. I was tied up with family obligations. Couple of quick things. So this would most certainly be a change in the role and responsibilities for the select board. How has this been received by the select board?
What a great question. I have reached out to all 5 of them, and the majority of them are supportive. Dean has some reservations about removing an important town asset from the select board control. And I assured him that that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that this would likely be a town entity rather than an independent commission. But that is the reason that I added into the wording of the petition or an advisory sewer committee.
So part and parcel of that is I believe that the sewer commissioners by current statute have to be the select board. Are you looking to change that, or are there any other legal considerations that have to matter? Or is this entity merely going to sort of be doing the heavy lifting and then bringing a consensus or majority or strongly recommended position to the select board for them to enact as the sewer commissioners?
So it's my understanding that there can be a distinct body acting as the sewer commissioners, because so many of the surrounding communities have statutory bodies with individuals who are not on the select board. It seems that they're most often appointed, but occasionally elected. One town has both elected and appointed members, and one select board member serving on the sewer commission. But is your understanding, Jason, that the state law?
I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be one. I'm curious. My question is, have you approached town council to see what it would take to accomplish this? Because there are questions there. Well, what's the final entity that you're looking for? How would it be comprised, and what responsibilities would it have? And how does that compare with what is currently the current official legal responsibilities that are held by the select board members now as sewer commissioners as well?
So I have not been in touch with town council about this, and this petition doesn't ask for, it doesn't declare a preferred entity to establish. It's just to look at the disadvantages and advantages. It's my understanding that when the sewer system was first constructed, there was discussion about having the Acton Water District commissioners be the entity that had oversight. So they would be acting as sewer and water commissioners. But the then town manager was not comfortable having a town finance, the sewer enterprise fund, under the control of the Acton Water District. So I think what's more common is that it's a town entity that's still underneath the select board's purview, but they're managing the sewer enterprise fund. But all of the details about that, I would hope, would come out in whatever analysis is pursued.
And then that leads me to my last question. When soliciting a study or any other consultancy project, there's usually a set of criteria or outstanding questions or some kind of guidance which is given to the consultant to be their charge on what they're supposed to investigate and respond to. Who would set those criteria? And what if those criteria are not in keeping with because those criteria are a way of putting your thumb on the scale for the type of report that you receive back. Who would set that criteria so we can make sure that it is in keeping with what the will of the town is?
I guess we would hope for the best, because the criteria, this is a non-binding resolution. So the select board, if they choose to, could just completely ignore the will of the town if it was a positive vote at town meeting. This petition does specify an objective analysis, so that probably precludes, a working group with staff in the engineering department. So to answer your question, it would be the select board deciding.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Sure.
Okay, Christy Anderson.
Hi, Alissa. Thank you for speaking to us. I think this is a very important issue to take up. As you spoke to, it requires a degree of expertise that is going to be hard to find, let alone find in someone who will get elected for select board and have to handle all of the other issues. This directly affects the sewage users' pocketbooks as well as the general economy of the town. So I think this is an important issue for us to take on. Thank you very much for doing it.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Steve Noon.
It was a long time ago, but I remember having a discussion when this first came up. Yes, I was around then. I thought it an odd idea that the selectmen were appointing themselves as sewer commissioners. Part of it was just, and at the time I knew nothing about sewers either, that it seemed like a lot to take on for a body that has some turnover. People don't stay selectmen in this town for very long, and there's a good reason for that. It's a lot of work. I also thought it was like one more political fight they didn't really have to get in. And we've had over the years a lot of, attempts to expand the current sewer district, as you point out. So always liking to be consistent with myself from 18 years ago or so, I'd say, yeah, I would be in favor of this article to at least take a look at it. Serving on the board of a sewer facility, it is complicated stuff, and it takes a lot of time. and it's not impossible to learn, but it takes a focus that you're not going to get as an agenda item on a board selectment meeting once or twice a year. So happy you're bringing it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Wellinghoff.
Hi, Alissa. A few of my questions are already asked and answered. Maybe one for you to think about, and I appreciate, you reaching out to other towns. That's one thing I always like to see us do broadly, is just see if there's, ways other towns have been successful in certain areas and why or why not. One thing that struck me about just sewers in Acton is, potentially a smaller number of households being served by the sewer system. And I'm not saying that biases me one way or the other, but one thing to consider is other towns that have had their separate standalone sewer commissions may have had much broader sewer availability than Acton may have. I know it's a pretty narrow set of the population. I was on the West Acton group for a while there, and I always appreciated that, each additional house was, an additional betterment, and to some extent an additional household to convince the value of the sewer system. So maybe that's more just an objective observation for you to think about. And then one of the bullet points you had was how to pay a grant, and I just wanted to probe on that a little bit. Is in a sense, is the sewer commission, if it would come into being, just the same as most of the town's other commissions that would work on different, maybe more technical matters? Is it'd be composed of volunteers, elected, I think is, perhaps what ultimately may come out of this. But is the cost of that, the cost for that really just what you're envisioning is just maintaining it as would any other commission in town, or is there an additional one that I might be missing there?
I think the cost that I am referencing in that side is for the analysis.
I see. Okay.
And so the cost of switching over to a different governance structure would have to be elucidated in that analysis. So
Great.
if there was an additional staff time in order to attend a sewer commission meeting, like that I would expect would come from the study, from the analysis.
Yeah, fair enough. And, I'm always, and I'm not picking on this topic, but these topics in general, is like whether the town, the town manager with his support staff could, have someone work on a project like this, or is it something worth hiring an external consultant for? But that's a little bit more food for thought. And then I want to dig a little deeper on Jason's question just about the select board. And the reason I mentioned it is just obviously like it's a non-binding resolution. The version of the warrant that I have currently doesn't necessarily have a select board member or an advocate for this particular cause. And perhaps one thing for yourself to consider is there someone, on the select board who could, be an advocate for a topic like this? Just primarily because as it is now, I generally like the idea, and I think the intentions are relatively good. And I do agree with the argument about a little bit more of a technical aspect of this job. And, it may be a little bit lower priority than other select board topics have been. And to that end, having an independent commission would serve some need. And obviously the article is just really getting to that potentially at some point. But having someone on the select board who could advocate for it, a town meeting, my guess would be that, this would appear as a standalone article, perhaps with the select board not taking an opinion on it. I may have missed that part of the conversation, but, if they're going to vote on it and they choose no recommendation or to not recommend, that is something that I think would stand out to town meeting. And so the more advocacy you do to get, one or more of them in your corner for this goal would certainly, I think, be supportive of you moving forward with it. But, generally, how I've read the article and how you phrased it here, I think that all makes sense. And I know that there's a number of committees in the town, that some elected, some appointed, that are just more, they tend to be a little more independent and a little more, technical in nature, specific skill sets that can be valuable in appraising these sorts of issues and so on and so forth. The one thing I'll circle back to, just as sort of a round out, is, the household served. If I'm thinking about the Water Commission, it's obviously a commission that serves broadly over the town. It'd be interesting from my perspective, and I'm not suggesting a follow-up, but if other towns have a little bit of a comparison between those two, mainly thinking about the household served and, just the time needed for those committees. The Water Commission obviously is very broad, affecting, probably, I'm guessing 95 to 99% of the households in town. But sewer, I forget the number off the top of my head, but it would be a fraction of that number, a relatively small number for just a narrow set of households. So anyways, food for thought for me. I'm generally supportive of the article. I appreciate you bringing it forward, and I don't see anything in here that really stands out as a cause for concern from my end.
Thank you.
Isha Gangali.
Thanks, Alissa, for bringing this to our attention. I don't have any particular questions. I think the way that you presented it was quite good and comprehensive. But should I have other questions, I will get in touch.
Email me. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Isha. Roland Borden. Did Roland leave? Is he still with us?
No, I just have audio issues. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Hello. Okay, so I'm generally supportive of this, given what everybody else has said, especially what Steve Noon has said, because he's been involved with this on his end. I think it's a good idea in a lot of ways to take that off the select board's hands. Whereas, yes, it is complex, and there are a lot of considerations that goes into something like this. So I'm supportive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick sidebar for those of you who weren't here last meeting to meet Vladimir Khan, who is joining us this evening. He's our newest appointed FinCom member, and he informed me that he's been sworn in Friday last week, but the town clerk didn't know. So I'm going to defer to longer standing members. Should we be asking Vladimir to contribute this evening, or should we wait until we get official word from the town clerk, opinions or advice?
He's been sworn in.
Yeah.
Why would anybody lie about that?
Right, that's what I was thinking. I just didn't know if I needed to have specific notification. So Vladimir, if you have any comments or questions for Alissa, please feel free to speak up now if you'd like.
I don't have any questions, and if I have some, I'll ask maybe later or send an email. Thank you.
Okay. Wonderful. So I think everybody touched on the points I would have asked you about, Alissa, and to me it seems like a logical ask.
Excuse me, Adam.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Mike hasn't had a chance to speak.
Oh, Mike, I went right past Mike. I'm sorry, Mike Majors, go ahead. Thank you.
I will ignore that little insult.
I am so sorry, Mike. I even have your name written down here. You were supposed to go after Steve Noon. I apologize.
No, I think, Alissa, that's an excellent idea, and I'm supportive of it. I would, I just hope the commission isn't like ideologues, that they really are in it to be serious about the what it means to have sewer in town or not have it, and the cost and expense and all the other factors that contribute to a good decision. I would like to see the members maybe be a little bit more higher level, higher functioning type members, in that they should have some specific technical knowledge, or like a minute more than just an interested citizen. I like to see them in order to to have it. The issue is complicated enough and probably political enough that I think you need some expertise on that board. A group of people that have the background and can work together and overcome some of these other issues and work with the select board. I think it's good that the select board sort of bows out of it a bit. They have enough on their plate, and we see how efficient they are anyway, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's good. I'm supportive of it. It's, where were you 10 years ago? Or this would have been sorely needed, a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades ago. And, we should have been smarter about when the money was available before, but we weren't. And now we're paying the price, but it's still, the problem hasn't gone away. So I think you have a good approach here, and I like to see it happen. So good work. Let's move it forward.
Adam, could I finish just with a couple of thoughts based on those comments?
Absolutely, feel free.
Can I real quick jump in and just say that we have one call-in person who has their hand raised. So I don't know if you want to speak first, Alissa, or listen to the call-in person.
Yeah, if there's comments, definitely take that.
Okay. Are you good, Adam? Could I go ahead and?
Well, the only problem is I don't see this person.
Oh, I'm going to hit allow to talk. It's almost definitely Tara, but we'll let them identify themselves, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Tara, can you hear me?
Oh,
yes.
Hi, Tara.
Hi there. Yes, I hope that you decide to endorse this article. I feel like a good way to remove ideologues is to have more transparency and more open discussion. I think that's a wonderful idea, and I hope that somebody moves to endorse this. And I'm ready for the Madeline petitions too, so thank you.
Wonderful, thanks. We'll be right back to you shortly.
Okay, so thank you so much for putting time in your agenda to hear about this petition. One thing that was brought up was the select board advocacy for this, and they did vote last week to recommend, but the vote was 3-1 to 1. So David Martin abstained and Dean Charter voted nay. So I will look for an advocate. Probably I will be most likely to find that advocacy in Jim Snyder grant. I do want to mention specific to your interests that the attempted sewer expansions that have failed were very costly to the town in terms of staff time that was devoted over, I believe, like a year and a half, and engineers who crafted plans. So if we are going to push for further expansion to another needs area like Great Road, it would be a shame if another time we spent a lot of precious resources and came up short again. So that's just a specific financial consideration. As I wrote to you in my very lengthy memo, I hope that all of you were able to read it. I spent about 3 months writing that in consultation with a number of other citizens who are interested in this issue. This is a financial issue of the future obligations. One of the concerns about decision-making and strategic planning that has been lacking with the current governing structure is the giving away of the remaining discharge capacity, which leaves not enough left for the people in the sewer district who have already paid betterments, and also waiving privilege fees. And I think probably not a lot of people are aware that the water district does not waive connection fees for even the Acton Housing Authority, because their obligations are to the water users, the ratepayers. I think it's a really good point, thinking about not having ideologues on such a commission. Another good point is that you can't guarantee that there will be a ratepayer who's serving as a sewer commissioner if the select board is, only 10% of the town is on the municipal sewer. So it's very rare that a ratepayer ends up on the select board. Even people that are in the sewer district, like David Martin, are not connected to the sewer. He has a septic system. So I think representation of ratepayers is important. And also I see, this petition doesn't really cover it, but I think there's a real opportunity here for the town to look more carefully at how it handles wastewater in general. So even though 10% of households are on the municipal sewer, there are 7 or 8 other package treatment plants in town. Nagog is one of them. There's a couple on Great Road. So there are households on sewer, they're just not on municipal sewer. And even, septic systems are processing wastewater, and the CWRMP talks about creating wastewater management districts. So if we have a body that's meeting regularly, full of experts, open to the public to bring questions and concerns and increase transparency, I think that it can only improve wastewater management in the town. And, there's a critical connection between wastewater management and protecting drinking water.
Okay. All right, Alissa, thank you very much for spending time with us this evening. And
Adam, Jason has his hand up.
Oh, Jason, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to just reiterate what she just said about going pretty far down the path of creating plans and schematics before getting approval at town meeting. That is exactly the thrust of what I had to say about the Department of Public Works building, which we had to double check our meeting notes on for a couple of meetings ago. So I do just want to drive home that point that please let the wider town and let the town administration hear the message of do not get too far down the path of committing money, committing studies, getting schematics until you're absolutely sure that you've got the backing of the town to move forward.
Great. Any other last comments or questions? Okay, Alissa, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alissa.
So Madeline Cruz couldn't make it tonight to present her 4 articles, but Tara Fredericks is going to step in and present on her behalf. And so how do you unmute somebody here?
So you can go into the participants list and under attendees. And then if you hover over her, you can unmute. We can't promote her to a panelist since she's a call-in user.
It's all right. I'm already unmuted.
Great.
Tara, go ahead, Tara.
Awesome. Just because I was at the Green Acton meeting, can you tell me, you didn't vote on whether to support Alissa's petition or not? Are you not voting on recommending or not recommending tonight?
We'll wait to discuss that until after you've concluded presentation.
Got it. Okay. So all I have is a draft presentation. I didn't understand that I'd be doing this tonight, but I'm going to just read through the slides. It'll probably take me about a minute, okay?
Okay, great.
One at a time. So 41, non-binding resolution, anti-bias training. The language of the petition is, and this would be the motion, I suppose, be it resolved that this town meeting requests the select board to find a way to ensure that all officials have anti-bias training and to become more aware of their behaviors and where bias occurs. This is a non-binding petition. It does not call for any specific solution. It's no cost. A yes vote would be non-binding, and it would be up to the select board to determine if and how they want such training to be implemented. Since there's no money associated with it, they would have to do it within the budget. A yes vote simply informs the select board that town meeting is in favor of such training, and it would be up to the select board to decide if to take action, how and when, and how it could be paid for. What is anti-bias training? It's guidance in making people aware of their behaviors in situations where bias occurs. Second thing is discovering stereotypes that affect our reflex responses when dealing with others of a different race, class, sexual orientation, etc. And then how to deal with these biases in a productive manner. Acton has already had some anti-bias training. I don't have that information right here, but it's my understanding that the schools have had some, and some town officials have had some training. Why is it needed? A 2016 study by the University of Massachusetts that included 8 regional focus groups, including Boston, Greenfield, Holyoke, Orleans, all over the state, 51 current and former elected and appointed municipal officials, including mayors, selectmen, etc. Over 500 survey response and interviews with municipal officials and other stakeholders. Study informs us that officials face public conflicts that persist and impair their ability to move forward in carrying out their public functions. That problem solving is likely to be undermined by reactive devaluation, a phenomenon whereby opponents devalue proposals or other information offered by, quote unquote, the other side. Confirmation bias. This is the propensity to seek out facts that support one's beliefs and discredit disconfirming data. Will diminish parties' ability to accept information that is inconsistent with their views. There are serious impediments, and this is across the state. Impediments to the official's role as a neutral party may arise due to his or her actual or perceived role or bias, or if he or she is rejected by one or more parties to the conflict. And lastly, there is a need, it tells us, to ensure facilitators have the required training and core skills necessary in anti-bias training to allow for productive conflict resolutions. The next slide, I list a whole bunch of towns that have some sort of anti-bias training for officials: Lexington, Lowell, Lunenburg, Sudbury, Wellesley, Westboro, Lincoln, Sudbury, Danvers, Brookline, Cambridge. The list will probably grow as we continue to do research. And then we ask you to vote yes to recommend this non-binding resolution asking for anti-bias training for officials.
Great. So Tara, that's the conclusion of the talk for the anti-bias from your standpoint, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me open it up to the FinCom. If there are any questions or comments, just raise your hand for me, and then I won't go through the whole list if we don't need to. Christy Anderson, go ahead.
Hi, Tara. For the places that do this, have this training already, how often is it repeated?
That's a really good question. And it seems to be somewhat haphazard. And this is one of the things we would want the select board to decide. Is it something that happens all the time, or is it something that happens only when somebody joins the organization for the first time? Those are things that I do think, well, at least I can't say what Madeline thinks, but I don't have any specific recommendations. It's just the resolution is meant to say that we want to have some, and what that is would be decided at some other point.
And I presume that the town does not do anything like this right now.
From what I understand, again, I'm not the petitioner, so I don't know all the answers, but it's my understanding that there is optional anti-bias training for town employees. The schools are a little bit more rigorous, although I don't have the details on that, but we'll certainly have that by by the time town meeting comes. Thank you for that.
Mike Majors, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I would just vote absolutely no on this. It's already too much intervention and restrictions on free speech, and if someone is angry about an issue, more power to them. They should be angry, maybe. If they have an opinion one way or another, let's hear it. If they're wrong, they will be challenged. If not, I just think it serves to restrict communication. It shuts down communication. It opens up people for criticism, and I think it's a restriction of free speech. It's a bad idea. I don't
Chairman,
think it's
may I respond to
necessary.
that? Oh, sorry.
No, I'm not finished, Tara.
Sorry.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. It's, people should be able to express their opinion. Some of these things are emotional. Some of them are political. Some of them are non-controversial. But this is America. We have the right to our opinion, and it should be presented in a non-filtered way. Right or wrong or otherwise. That's the way it is. At least that's my opinion. Well, I'm allowed to have my opinion. Thank you.
Chairman, may I respond to that? Because I think there's a misunderstanding about what the
Yes,
petition is about. Yes, the petition is about officials having the training, not the public. And it's not about trying to get people to not be angry or to not express their views, but to express them in a way that's respectful, as well as to understand how other people may view things and from what context and where their perspective comes from. I think I got that. I hope Alissa speaks. I don't know if she's still here. She probably has more knowledge than I do about anti-bias training. But thank you for letting me speak again.
Sure. Christine Russell, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, sorry, I put it up and then the school called Minuteman to announce a delay for tomorrow. I kind of was basically going to say what Tara was saying, which is learning what speech may or may not cause someone to feel targeted does not prohibit you from speaking that way. It doesn't limit free speech. It doesn't limit you from saying words that others, for reasons you may not understand, because it's not your perspective, not your heritage, not your experience, but understanding what those words do to the person who hears them does not do anything to inhibit your ability to say those words. So it's no restriction whatsoever on free speech. I think that learning what is harmful to some is not harmful to me to learn. Anyway, I think that we all have biases that we don't even know about. And often it takes somebody who's lived an experience to come along and say, when you use these words, this is what it means to me. And then I can decide whether or not I'm still willing to use those words. And I don't see any harm in that.
Thank you, Christine.
Jason Cole.
I'd like to echo what Christine just said, but I would also like to add that I am uncomfortable with the wide-rangingness of this. It's one thing to ask for an anti-bias training similar to what we all have to go through on conflict of interest, right? That's a computer-based training that we can take at our leisure. Only takes like 2 hours. That's a far cry from, say, a week-long in-person held by a moderator training. And while I understand the spirit of what you're asking for, would much prefer there be some more meat on the bones than this, because both of the things that I just said meet your requirements according to this one sentence motion. I'd also like to know how frequently it needs to be done, and I'd like to have some fencing on what your definition of officials are. Is everybody who's on any board in any volunteer capacity, in any form, anywhere in this town, an official of the town? So I definitely don't see this being a free speech issue. I see this being an educational issue. My concern is this one line is way, way, way more broad than I'm comfortable with and is open to abuse. So if you could make the recommendation of perhaps tightening it up or amending it on the floor, or be more explicit in what your ask is, so that if it does get approved, the select board has better guidance. I find one sentence petitions to be way too vague. Thank you for your time.
And Christy Anderson, is your hand still up?
Yes, it is. Tara, I also wanted to, one thing, Jason thinks often that non-binding petitions, from what I've learned, are too broad. So I would take that with a grain of salt. I think it's a general recommendation. I don't have the issue. Jason does, but feel free to talk to everyone about that. It occurs to me that we, as not quite employees of the town, but as part of town government, have state computer-based training that we do to for ethics. I don't know if you've looked into it yet, but you could see whether there are any resources the state has available for their programs on anti-bias training, because I imagine they do some of it. Just another area to look into.
Thank you. I'll do that.
Okay, great. I think that concludes the hands that I saw for the anti-bias training. I would just add the comment that it's important to consider what the financial impacts of any of these things are, even though they're non-binding. What is the impact on the road? I feel for something like this, the costs would be, training and that type of thing, but costs on the side of not implementing something like this could be lawsuits and other issues. So I think those type of topics are perhaps worth some discussion as we move forward with this. So on that note, Tara, would you like to move on to the next
yes.
warrant for Madeline?
And thank you for the feedback. All of those comments are we'll consider, and I don't know if you'll want to take the time to do an amendment that may take a half an hour at town meeting. But I don't know if it would make you happier if we would change our presentation to be provide more guidance. I know that none of this is binding, but it might help relative to what the petitioners intended. So we'll work on that. So the next one is the Code of Conduct. This is similar, but different. And so Article 42, non-binding resolution for Code of Conduct. Be it resolved that this town meeting requests the select board to institute a more comprehensive code of conduct for officials. This article is non-binding, does not call for any specific solution. It's a no-cost article because a yes vote would be non-binding, and it would be up to the select board to determine if and how they want such a code of conduct to be implemented. A yes vote simply informs the select board that town meeting is in favor of having a code of conduct for officials, and it would be up to the select board to decide to take action. What is a code of conduct? According to the Mass Municipal Association, a code of conduct should, 1, give direction on board interaction with other board and committee members, the community, town staff, and the town administrator. 2, cover all written material, including social media posts and emails. I'll be sending a link so you can see the Mass Municipal Association's video on Code of Conduct that's been prepared for municipalities to review. And they also have a sample Code of Conduct. There's also a link for that. State already has a Code of Conduct, so why is it needed at the Acton level? The state's Code of Conduct focuses on financial conflict of interest rather than on issues most seen at the town level, such as behavior by officials in meetings, behavior by officials outside of meetings. Without a code of conduct, there is no standard to measure the official's behavior. Code of conduct encourages honesty, integrity, and best practices for all, and is useful when a claim arises that an official does not behave well. There is a standard to measure against. And this goes back to 41 too, relative to costs. The amount of costs that we had to go through for several claims of code of conduct and bias and all that stuff, that's all time. That's staff time, that's lawyer time. I could probably total it up for you, but I suspect that the costs would be much less to do this kind of education. Massachusetts towns that we know of that have a written code of conduct for officials: Pepperell, Swampscott, Harvard, Monson, Princeton, Dennis, Lexington, Webster, Acushnet, Oaksbrook, and that's just us getting started. And we hope you'll vote yes on a non-binding resolution to establish a written code of conduct. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Any comments or questions from the Finance Committee? I see none. Code of conduct seems like sort of a no-brainer thing that every business, institution, and governing body would have in place. So I don't really see any particular issues with that. Let's move right along then to the next one.
Adam, Mike has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Mike, I keep missing you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just think it would be a little bit redundant with all the other training we get with their open meeting law and everything else. That and plus common sense on the part of the human being that you know, they should respect their neighbor and each other. It is common sense, but I don't think it's necessary. I think it is redundant and restrictive.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments? Okay, Tara, let's move along to the next one.
Okay, Article 43, non-binding resolution to reduce transfer station sticker prices. Resolved that the town meeting requests the select board to find a way to reduce the transfer sticker price for low-income residents. Article's non-binding, same thing, no cost. Yes vote just informs the select board to check it out. Doesn't require them to do anything. Why is there a need to reduce the price of transfer station stickers for low-income people? Many low-income people do not live in apartment complexes and have to pay separately for trash removal. Many apartment complexes have a limit on the amount of trash, and renters with large families do not have a place to bring their extra trash. Many apartment complexes do not have recycling. While recycling sticker is less than a full sticker, it still is a cost for low-income residents. Further, when they're coming to bring their recycling, they would like to bring their extra trash at the same time. It would help all low-income residents, not just seniors. And it would shift the burden of very low-income people to people that have more money. And that's it. Please vote yes.
Comments from the committee. Jason Cole has his hand up.
I'd just like to caution the petitioner and anybody who speaks to these petitions to stop saying that these petitions have no cost. If these things are done, if you are successful and time is spent pursuing your recommendations, time is money, there is a cost. Please stop saying this is completely free. Nothing is completely free when you put effort into it.
Should I respond to that? Or
any other hands? If you have a response, that's fine.
Well, my response is that it's like saying that there's no cost to planning, not doing any planning. There sure is. There's a cost on my property value, but some people call that no cost because we don't want to expend the effort to create that value. So there's an opportunity cost of not doing something. In this particular case, there is no cost because the select board can completely ignore it. They can choose later whether to do it or not. That's what I meant by no cost. But I'm not asking you for any money. It's still within the budget if the select board moves forward.
With all due respect, you undermine your argument about whether or not this should be passed. If you say this is no cost because it can easily be ignored, then you make it down for people to ignore it. Please stop saying that.
See. Okay, I get the point now. Thank you so much.
Mike Majors.
Here I go again. I just think when you focus on special privilege for tenants versus homeowners, I think if they live in a building and they rent, it should, and there is a demand for recycling or composting or whatever the issue is, I bring those issues up with the landlord, and it's the obligation of the landlord to do that. It's not the obligation of the town to provide something that's missing from your quality of life. I do support that there is could be a sliding scale on levels. Let me let the dogs in. Hold on. Levels of income for people to pay for a recycling sticker or a dump sticker. So, you know, I could support this. Just like the seniors get a break if they're certain level of poverty, they should also get a break. But everyone should have skin in the game. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So I wonder if there's not a better avenue of redress on this topic basis that probably the people who would be most impacted by this resolution would be homeowners who pay taxes but have limited income, whereby renters who live in apartment buildings, well, I guess the other impacted parties would be renters who live in homes rather than apartment buildings. where there's not already, trash collection. And I wonder if perhaps the better avenue for addressing this would be through the town's tax credit programs, whereby people can make requests to the town to get some credits or rebates on their taxes, although it doesn't really address it for those people who are renting homes, not renting an apartment, therefore they're not paying a direct tax bill. So there's a couple different ways, I guess, that we could get at this. Any other comments or questions from the Finance Committee? Okay, Tara, if you'd like to move on to the final warrant.
Yes, the final one is the composting facilities at apartment buildings. Article 44, non-binding resolution, composting facilities, apartment buildings to reduce the amount of food waste. This town meeting requests the select board to bring to a future town meeting a change in the bylaw or to institute town policy, which would require multifamily housing owners to ensure on-site access to composting facilities for renters to use. Again, non-binding, doesn't call for any specific solution, asks for no increase in budget. And okay, what is composting? Composting is a process by which organic materials are allowed to decompose with microorganisms and oxygen, breaking down the materials into a nutrient-rich soil additive. Why is composting good? In a landfill, organic waste gets buried under mounds of toxic trash, so it can't break down like it would in a compost pile. Instead, it rots and emits methane. The town of Hamilton, in their study, and I'll be giving you guys links to all these, found that compostable portion of waste is 25% by weight, and that wet garbage takes the most energy to burn and adds significantly to carbon emissions. And WBUR reported Massachusetts has only 6 landfills, and almost all are due to reach capacity by 2030. How much the town we're talking about, I don't have the numbers on this yet. I have a note to myself in my own slides, but it's about a third of the town is not allowed to, because they're either in complexes, places where the landlord controls, or otherwise. And why is it so hard for apartment dwellers to compost? Well, most apartment complexes do not provide composting and ban residents from doing so on site on their own. We've had circumstances where there was an agreed upon place that the residents were putting their compost, and it was basically just melting into the ground. And the complex owner, property manager stopped them and said no. Apartment dwellers would have to drive or otherwise bring their food waste to the transfer station, discouraging the practice. So we hope you'll vote yes to find a way to provide composting or allow composting at apartment buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. I see Christine Russell has her hand up.
Thanks. Thanks, Tara. I am pro composting. I pay for composting pickup. I am against forcing apartment complexes to maintain a compost. But I am pro assisting renters and other low-income people in getting access to the transfer station where they could compost. And I understand that that's a hurdle and a barrier, and it's one that I pay to not have to do, but it's more than no access to compost. So that's just where I stand on this issue. Thanks.
Thank you. Christy Anderson.
I'm with Christine. I am pro compost. I have tried through a number of places I've lived to have a compost pile to no success ever. I can imagine there would be a lot of pushback with people saying that this isn't simply a garbage can you put stuff into. It is a resource that needs to be managed, needs to be dealt with. So this is a bit of an ask for the landlord. It requires some management. This isn't just a simple thing saying, hey, stick a garbage can out there, people put their food waste in. So I'm with Christine on the idea that this is a very good argument, again, for having a decreased cost dump sticker for people. I forgot my next point, but I have a hard time seeing this one going through.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the Finance Committee? I would say that we are also composters at our house, and doing so, have done a fair amount of research on composting and discovered, from good articles that in New England, because of the climate, to have effective hot composting in New England, you need something like the equivalent of 3 cubic yards minimum to create enough mass. So if you don't have a hot barrel or some type of additive way to generate the heat, the pile itself won't get hot enough to compost properly. And so I know that becomes an issue. So I'm probably with the folks who say it's a little more difficult to impose this type of a rule on a landlord or a property manager. And I feel like it's a little bit more up to residents on a grassroots basis to do it, take it upon themselves and manage it properly themselves. Because really, it's the old adage, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And that's the only way it's going to probably get done effectively. Any other questions, comments from the Finance Committee on this topic? Okay, so I think I just had a hiccup on my computer screen. Zoom, are we still on? Everybody still good?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Tara, I think that's it. Do you have any other comments or questions before we let you go?
No, so do I stay on in case you got questions at the end? My other meeting's over anyways, I suppose. So I guess I'll be here if there are any questions, or maybe I'll ask if I could weigh in later.
Okay, wonderful. And thank you so much for stepping in for Madeline. I hope everything is okay with
My
Madeline
pleasure.
and the family. Okay. All right. So since we have our illustrious Mr. Steve Noon with us this evening, and last time you were with us before your wonderful vacation, which I hope went well, and we'll catch up.
It did.
We had discussed the idea of not voting on any articles until after we held our
budget hearing.
Budget hearing. Thank you.
Yes. My mind is clear. I've been in the tropics for 2 weeks.
Where's the tan? No offense, but where's the tan?
When you're like me, old and of Irish extraction, you use a lot of sunblock when you're down there.
That's great. So what do we feel as a committee, whether we could take votes on these non-binding articles this evening, or should we wait until after we've held our budget hearing?
I mean, they're not. Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, let Christine go. Be friendly.
Okay, sorry.
I have no problem voting on them tonight.
Okay.
Get them out of the way.
And Jason, do you have a comment?
The one advantage of holding off until next week is we can do them all by hand votes rather than having to have roll call votes for every single item tonight.
Jason, you are an incredibly smart individual. Thank you for being a member of our committee. Okay. And on that note, as chair, I will move us right along to liaison reports. Does anybody have reports for us? Christy Anderson, go ahead.
It hasn't met yet, but the Kelly's Corner Steering Committee is setting up a meeting for, looks like mid-April, to discuss the idea addressed in Franny Osmond's citizens petition upcoming about doing a zoning study of the area.
Okay. Anybody else? Christine Russell, go ahead.
I meant to send you all an update about this last school committee meeting, and I completely failed to do so. So I will send a follow-up meeting so you have the details after this. However, the contracts for the teachers is set, signed, done. The next 3-year contract will be 1.75% increase for 2024, and then a 2.75% increase for the following 2 years. So a total of 7.25% for the next 3 years for COLA. That's just the cost of living. Add on to that the steps and lanes. This is considered an incredibly competitive contract right now. Contracts that have been signed within the last year in surrounding districts have settled between 7 and 12% for 3 years. Contracts being signed within the last few months have run between 8 and 13.75%. This is due to major staffing shortages in education. So, the district feels pretty good about the way this contract worked out. They made a few changes, including an increase in parental leave for either person involved with bringing a new baby to the house or an adoption. Not a lot of other changes other than a small increase in what they'll be paying their subs, but that's not totally settled on yet. And then the other thing that's of interest is that we're getting to the point, because of inflation and because of things that have happened with the governor's budget since COVID, that we may come out of hold harmless within the next year or two. And what that means is that we're basically getting more money per pupil than we're allowed, than we should be, but because our enrollment has gone down. And once they've set the dollar amount per pupil, they don't reduce it. So basically we'll just continue to get it, and we're in a phase called hold harmless. And then if our population of students increases, we could go back to getting increases in what we get from the governor's budget, which would be significant. It would be $1 million or $2 million per year more. We're getting to a point that, and they're keeping an eye on this, where it's possible that converting our part-time kindergartners to full-time kindergartners would be the thing that tips the scale. But the way it works is we get the money a year later. So if 3-4 months into the next school year, we realize we've reached the point where we could hit that number if our current half-day K people were full-day K, we may take the step to convert them mid-year, refund the money that we accepted for their tuition, and convert them all to full-time so that we're that much closer to a full year, so we can start to see that increase from the state funding. So we just need to keep an eye that that's close. Obviously, easiest if it happens between budget cycles, but they may have to dig into E&D at some point, which is already stretched pretty thin, but they may have to in order to refund tuition so that we can capture that extra money as soon as we can get access to it. So those are the two big things from the last school committee meeting. I see hands up. Are they for me or more committee reports? Awesome. So I will send this information to you all so you have it in front of you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Mike Majors.
I met with Jim Snydergrant about his 3 warrant articles, or 3 of what I was concerned about. The building code fossil fuels, number 13, accept the 10-town gas pilot program, number 14, and amend general bylaws specialized energy code, number 15. Basically, the warrant article number 13, the building code, has been rolled into the other 2, so that will go away. And most of his warrant is basically a follow-up to what was approved 2 years ago when we asked for a home rule petition for some of these items. And that's, we'll have more details as this gets fleshed out, but this is still, all the details are not there, but nothing too, it's controversial is not the word, but nothing too, that we would be surprised at to hear in these proposals. And although one is where they're talking about the 10 community home rule, there used to be an all-electric option and a mixed fuel option for new construction, and they're proposing to get rid of the mixed fuel option, making it only all electric. So there might be some pushback on that, but that's where we are so far.
Thank you, Mike. Jason Cole.
The school building committee met last week. As we're hoping we're coming down to the last couple of meetings. We're hoping we're done in about 6 months on this new twin school of the campus, Boardwalk campus. The important thing to note is that the owner's contingency reserve is down to $44,000, which is lower than I wanted it to be. There were a number of articles, or a number of last minute asks or day two things that were requested that I didn't necessarily agree with, but I lost out on during the larger committee vote. But yes, we're down to $44,000 in the owner's contingency with about 6 months to go. And I think Adam's frozen.
I mean, Vice Chair Steve.
You hear me?
We're going to assume that and go straight to Steve.
All right. Well, the Health Insurance Trust met just before I left on vacation. We did approve a new actually adjustment to pricing model with Blue Cross on pharmaceuticals, which should save us about $400,000 or $500,000 a year. And we approved a request for quote for to bring in quotes on the advisory and brokerage contract that we have with Cook and Company. The contract expires on June 30th, so we thought we would at least test the market. We seem to have some interest from at least 2 other bidders, and that could result in some significant savings on our stop loss insurance. At least we hope so. So those bids are due in another couple of weeks or so, and I'll keep you posted.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me now?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So I went ahead and took the liberty of adding the upcoming important dates to the agenda, just so that I wouldn't forget to mention all of them before we adjourn. This Thursday is the budget vote for the school committee. The planning board's last regular meeting to vote recommendations is March 21st, next Tuesday, I believe that is. And our last regular meeting to vote all of our recommendations for warrants is March 28th. Steve, does that mean that we also need to hold our budget hearing by that date? Jason's nodding his head yes.
You're going to want
Steve's nodding his head yes.
The only
do it at the next meeting.
Okay, sorry. And so the last opportunity we would have if we needed to catch anything up would be probably Tuesday, the April 4th, or any other date that we needed to meet if we had to, before the town warrant and election posting on April 11th. So the select board meetings, select board's last regular meeting to vote is April 3rd, and then the town warrant is published April 11th. And it looks like our next ALG meeting is April 13th. So, Christy Anderson's hand is up.
Maybe we're about to get to this. Are you saying that we need to have all of our votes done by the end of the next meeting, which is on March 28th? We need to vote all of our.
That appears to be the case.
That's going to be a long meeting.
It is, and so I think it's probably fair to say we may be holding a meeting on April 4th. Which wouldn't be bad. That's the only extra meeting we have to have between now and town meeting. I think that's probably not horrible. Christine Russell, did you raise your hand?
I was just going to ask if we want to try to start at 7 next meeting.
Let me make a note. March 28th. Start at 7. Okay, Jason Cole has his hand up.
Do we know when the deadline for the CPC to come back with yet is? Because that's in the past, that has been from time to time a source of contentious topics, and I would like to make sure we can get ahead of it if we can.
They have not reached out to us, and the last I heard at the most recent select board meeting was that they were very close to making their final presentations. I haven't heard anything else since then.
Thank you.
Christy Anderson.
It went very poorly the one year that CPC did not speak to us before we voted on that article. So we should have them in very much.
Yep, I will reach out to them. And so just to come back around to Christy's first comment about starting at 7 p.m. or Christine's comment about starting at 7 p.m. Can I get a nod that everybody's okay with starting at 7 p.m. on March 28th? Okay, good. That's enough. Okay, and with that,
Adam?
sorry, Roland. Roland's got his hand up.
I think we should I know you're going to talk to John Mangiarotti of having Corey York come in to go over the study for the DPW and the monies they're looking for at town meeting. I think that'd be beneficial.
Okay.
As well as having CPC, because as Christy pointed out the year that they did not come in, it got a little ugly at town meeting.
Okay, great. So I will reach out. If any of you are thinking of specific parties that need to come and present to us, please reach out to me after this meeting to make sure that I'm getting a hold of them this week still. And we'll make sure that we touch every point. Isha Gangali.
I did manage to talk to Mr. Mangiarotti about the warrant articles that were assigned to me. So if you'd like me to present that next week or next time, I could do that.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, let's talk about that offline and see what you and I think needs to be presented, or whether we need to ask Mr. Mangiarotti to come in or not for any of those topics. Roland, are you done, or did you have another comment? Your hand is still up. Okay.
I'm good, but I think you should have John come in anyway to explain it, maybe, because we always have questions and it might be beneficial to have him into our next meeting as well.
Okay. Let me just make a note here really quick. So this is, I think, the first finance committee that I have ever attended where we have 11 committee members. So we're all here. Welcome, Vladimir and Scott, our two newest associate members. And so Vladimir, it's a long-standing tradition in the finance committee that the newest member...
Excuse me, Adam.
Oh, yes, Christy.
Just to clarify what you said, we are planning on voting on the 28th with the option of pushing out to the 4th. Should we confirm that people are available on the 4th if we cannot get everyone in?
You know, it's a good idea since we're all here. Is there anybody who cannot attend on April 4th if we need to have another meeting on April 4th? It looks like nobody's in dispute unless Dave Wellinghoff or Mike Majors, who I can't see their faces. Okay, so good. So certainly enough for a quorum if we needed to. I have a sneaky suspicion that we will need to have a meeting April 4th just because there are so many things coming down the wire. But let's see. Let's wait and see. Okay, so now can I conclude? Have we done enough? Okay, so Vladimir, is a longstanding tradition in the finance committee that the newest member, their sole responsibility to begin with is to make the motion to adjourn. So at this point in time, I will accept a motion to adjourn from Vladimir Khan, our newest member.
I'm not very much familiar with the process. Could you help me on this one?
Wonderful. Good. I'm glad you asked because I felt the exact same way when they told me. So all you have to say is I move that we adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
And now we have to take a roll call vote. Christy, do you want to call people out in the order you want, or do you want me to?
Yes, I do. I have written it down ahead of time. Steve,
and we will let, pardon me, we will let both of our associate members vote on this.
Okay, Scott Sullivan.
I agree. A motion to adjourn.
Roland,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
Isha,
Aye.
Vladimir.
I
Do you prefer Vlad or Vladimir?
doesn't matter.
Okay.
Vlad is fine too.
Dave,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
and I say aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Good night.